I am a wannabe indie hacker right now. And I feel like I'm at the same point that I was when I was kind of learning how to code. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. Even though I'm taking a lot of action, I don't feel like I'm doing it right. And I feel like I've consumed enough content on it where I kind of know what to do. And even though I'm getting a lot of good advice by like reading books like the $1 Million Weekend or Start Small, Stay Small or the Lean Startup, I'm not reading, I'm listening to those books, but like having consumed that content and knowing enough to like what I should do, even though I'm not necessarily doing all those things that I should be doing in order to have a successful SaaS product, like skipping the marketing or like the validating an idea. I'm going straight to the code and building, and there's a lot of fumbling around. And I think that's normal for anything that you do self-taught or try to do without having done it before. It's just you kind of fumble around for a little bit and figure things out, and you make mistakes and you learn from your mistakes. And even though you get good advice or consume good content on it, you're still got to like burn your hand to realize that the stove is hot, even though you've been told that you're going to get burned if you touch it. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And there's just so many things that make indie hacking or being a solopreneur or a micropreneur difficult that I am kind of learning right now. And even though I haven't made my official first dollar from any of my little SaaS ideas that I've built, I know that I'm on the way and I'm getting close to an MVP on my second SaaS idea that I am working on now that feels like it has a lot of potential. And I'm so close to that MVP, and I've been working my ass off for the last like month and a half, 2 months. And right around the end of the 2-month mark, I'll probably be releasing an MVP with users signed up to an email. So it's looking good. But then I go and I look on Twitter, and I have my shrine of Peter Levels and all of these other indie hackers that I look up to, and I see how successful they are, and they like accidentally make money by building like little bullshit luggage tracker apps. And I'm not calling his app bullshit, but it's just like things that feel like a feature are built into SaaS ideas, and they end up making thousands of dollars monthly off of like the simplest little idea. And here I am hacking away at like a full-blown client management app that's going to do all types of different stuff and just does so much more than just consume an API and display data. And like I'm working super hard and seeing other people who are successful, and it makes you feel like you're doing things wrong. I feel like I'm ranting a little bit, but I just wanted to like emphasize like how hard it is to get started in this indie hacking endeavor. And I want to like talk about some of that and get it off my chest, but I want to like just maybe go into a little bit more of the bullet points that I wrote down that are a little bit better structured so that this doesn't turn into a rant, but take that as the intro of like my frustrations with how hard this is and me just learning from this right now. And I'll say that like one of the hardest things that I'm like struggling with right now is that you wear so many hats as an entrepreneur or an indie hacker. You're not just a developer, and you have to change that mindset. And it's a hard mindset for me to shift from, even though I've consumed all these different contents that tell me like I need to market more than just open up a text editor and start building my idea. I need to validate the idea. I need to get a paying user before I actually build anything. Like I still am having a hard time doing that. And it's the memes of developers not being marketers. And it's the memes that you see people put out there that you know that this is a mistake, but I'm still struggling with that. And I think it's that I'm not used to wearing so many different hats. Professionally, as a developer and my short time as a designer, I have always been a developer and a designer. I understand how to work in a structured corporate setting. I don't know how to be a developer, a designer, a marketer, a project manager, a product owner, a scrum master. I'm not doing agile or scrum, but I'm just saying like I don't know how to do all of those things. all of these different hats that I'm trying to wear at the same exact time is difficult to do, and it's hard to learn, and it's a strange like shift in mentality that you have to make when you start like indie hacking and micropreneuring and solopreneuring and trying to actually build like software as a service applications. And it's just one of my current struggles. The next struggle that I'm having is the lack of stability and income. This line that I'm having to walk, it's this thing I'm having to do where I make YouTube videos, and I'm so fortunate and lucky enough that YouTube is able to bring me an income, because there are so many people that try to become indie hackers and solopreneurs who are living off of savings. But now, as I am trying to move more into, let me use my skills as a developer to build products that I can sell to people, and doing that and not being able to focus on YouTube, or not trying to focus on YouTube as much, and then hurting my income there. And then like knowing that like I have just a certain amount of money that I am making consistently on a monthly basis, and I am fortunate to have that money, but it's still so much less than what I was used to making as a developer. And there's no steadiness and sense of security in the income, because if I don't upload videos, I don't make as much money. If anything happens with Google AdSense or YouTube, if they cut ads in half, if I get demonetized, if I don't upload anything, like I'm not in control of that money. And then I'm building and building and building and building and not seeing any return. Like I have been working a shit ton. Like you don't realize how hard indie hacking is until you work for 2 months straight and not make a single dollar from all that work you've done. And the idea is that you can maybe make some money once this thing's released, and eventually that could become passive if it becomes automated, or you can sell it and exit and then make like a chunk of change off of it if you are in fact able to do that, which I don't know if I will be. And you are of the mindset that you will eventually get a return of investment in the time that you are putting into building this thing that you are building, or at least hoping that you will, and then like not making any money right there, and then like having something else that makes you money, but then not really focusing on that because you want to work on these other things, or you want to be successful in these other things because you know that that will have a better long-term achievement of financial success for you, and is more in line with what you're trying to do long-term, rather than be on a content hamster wheel. And now I'm ranting again, but I'm just saying the lack of security and stability in my income, and working and not seeing any return on all that work I'm doing, it's super hard. Like I said, I come from working a day job, and a good job. Like as a software developer, you make good money. I never really had to worry about money in the last like 5 years. I've been pretty damn good, except for when I leave my job and try to do YouTube, or when I leave my job and now try to indie hack. Those have been the only times where I've had any kind of financial instability, and it's just so hard. Like I don't know how people who do this with just savings like commit to this and not have like a panic attack, because it's seriously hard to do. Another thing is that I am working a lot, and I work in isolation, which I pride myself in being an introvert. I feel like I am really good at that, but I will say that working on a team and having feedback and working with other developers and just kind of having some form of, people to just bounce ideas off of and those kind of things. Like it's really hard when you are an indie hacker or a solopreneur and you are a one-man team. Not only do you have to wear all the different hats, you are on your own. And I do well enough. I know that maybe this is good for me because I am able to deal with it better than others. And if I was like an extrovert and I really needed people, maybe I would be bouncing off the walls and like miserable right now. But I do have to say that I do feel a sense of isolation and loneliness in the amount of time I've spent working by myself in front of my computer, in front of the code. Right now, in my current app that I'm building, I have a buddy of mine who's kind of like the co-founder, and there's been a few phone calls that we've had, and there's been some WhatsApp messaging, and like we've been like talking in that sense and bouncing ideas in that sense. But there's still so many hours that go into me coding and building this thing and just sitting in front of the computer and working and working and working and just being by myself. It kind of sucks. And when our situation changes and we leave KL where we're at now, I do plan on our next place that we're at. I'm going to get a co-working space so that I kind of at least leave and get a change of scenery and go work where other people are so that I don't feel so isolated. And even though I am an introvert, and that feels weird to say because I don't really like working in cafes. I think that the amount of isolation and loneliness that comes with being an indie hacker has driven me to that point. If it can break an introvert, it's rough. So just that's another thing I've been dealing with like just working in indie hacking and solopreneuring recently. And this is another thing I pride myself in, but I'm finding myself struggling. I am finding myself struggling with a bit of the self-motivation and staying focused and trying to like get deep work done and not just sitting in front of the computer doing busy work and like really trying to get stuff done. It's really hard to wake up day in and day out and sit in front of this computer for hours on end and hack away at an app that you are not seeing any immediately results in. And there's a bit of a honeymoon phase when you first start a new project that's super fun and you're like getting to learn some new things and you're implementing features, and then you hit this grind mode that I feel comes like after a few weeks or like the first month, where now like that honeymoon phase of building something new is starting to fade and you're getting to the point where it's just work. And you are so focused on trying to get to that MVP point that the honeymoon phase to MVP, there's this valley of despair that you have to like trudge through and get through, where you're working, you're by yourself, you're not making any money, and you're spending a whole bunch of time trying to get this thing done it's very hard to stay motivated through. And I would be lying if I said that there weren't some days where I just didn't feel like working, and I'm wise enough to be able to recognize that that's like early signs of burnout, and I take the breaks when I need them. But the problem is that when you step away from the code for a little while and you got another idea and you're like, oh, I should really execute on that idea because I want to build that, but you started this idea and you need to stay dedicated and you have to motivate yourself in order to finish that first idea before you move on to the next. That's super hard, and having that self-motivation and that discipline to stay in it and work through those long times when you just don't want to, it's really hard. And it's something about indie hacking that I didn't realize was going to be like that. And it's probably because of all those indie hackers on Twitter who just post their MRR and their pictures from Bali that made me think that this was not going to be so hard to be motivated for. But it's okay. I got this. I know I got this. It's just, that's why I make these videos, so I can vent, get it off my chest, teach, and maybe share some of my experience, and then keep on keeping on. I talked about like the learning curve, or like being able to like learn a new stack and learn a new tech is super fun. We as developers love doing that. I really believe that if you don't enjoy learning new things, it's very hard to be a developer. And I feel that I have trained myself to be good at a lot of the things that would make me a good indie hacker. Learning is great and it's fun to learn, but at some point there's so many different things that you have to learn that there's like a steep learning curve. You don't know how to handle that. It can be overwhelming, and there have been points where I'm just like, I don't want to figure out how to do this thing. Like luckily I have AI and like been using Claude a lot, and that's been great. And that's helped with some of that stuff. But I do find myself sometimes where like, at the beginning, I used to read every little line from Claude when I was trying to figure out how to do something in Filament PHP, which is something that I'm using now, or in Laravel. And then towards this time now where I've been building this thing for a while, I find myself like just copying and pasting. I'm not reading anything because I'm like, I am over learning right now. Like I feel like there's a time when learning feels great, and there's a time where you just don't want to learn anything anymore, and you just want to get done with the thing that you were trying to do. And then when you move on to the next thing, you realize that there's more learning, and you move on to the next thing, you realize that there's more learning, and the learning curve can be very difficult, and it's something to be aware of if you're thinking about doing this stuff, because as someone who enjoys learning and loves taking on new tasks and doing stuff that's challenging, there is a point where you don't want any challenges, and you kind of miss the mundane work that you could do on autopilot. I've had very little work that I can do on autopilot because I'm not working a regular job where my task and all my work is exactly the same every day. And that is something that has been a bit of a challenge to learn, funny enough, right? It's hard for me to learn and to get comfortable learning, and to realize that I actually miss some of the autopilotness of having a job that I don't really have with like this indie hacking endeavor that I have decided to pursue. Because while I know the development part, there's stuff that I'm learning there, and then I'm learning about marketing, and then I'm learning about DevOps, and I'm learning how to deploy my application. I'm learning about payment processing. I'm learning about this. I'm learning about that. And I am just so over learning, and I just want to just get this stuff done. But the truth is that all of this learning is a big load up front, and what ends up happening is that I will take all of these things that I have learned and apply it to the next thing and apply it to the next thing, and then by the time I am building app number 5, I'm on number 2 right now, by the time I'm building app number 5, I'll be breezing through stuff, and all of the work that I've done up front and this learning curve that I am dealing with now ends up kind of plateauing, and then a lot of those things that I've been learning do become autopilot later, and I know that that's how the process goes. But holy shit, there's so much to learn when you're like trying to become an entrepreneur and pursue indie hacking and micropreneurship and solopreneurship and all those ish words that people make up for this stuff that sound cheesy as hell, and I hate saying them, but I don't know what other term I'm going to use, and I'm calling it what it is. And that's just kind of some of the stuff I've been wanting to talk about, and I've been dealing with and been frustrating with. It's way harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm up for the challenge. This is all going to be worth it in the long run, or at least I hope it will. I guess I don't know what the outcomes will be, but I know that if I keep putting in this kind of effort, if I keep getting better, if I keep learning, if I keep building, if I decide to, actually heed and take in some of the advice that I have been consuming, content and all that crap, that I'll get to where I want to be. And I think that that's what I have learned from so many different things that I have pursued over the years, that many of these things have very similar overlap in a lot of the feeling and sentiment and emotions that you go through. And you will go through a lot of different emotions when you set out to do a lot of different things that are challenging. And nobody said that this was going to be easy. In fact, I knew this was going to be very hard going into it. And I am, again, just trying to vent and rant and express a little bit of my frustrations and what I am going through in order to share this experience with other people out there who might be interested in doing this, have done it and can relate, or just want to hear me bitch and moan on YouTube. With that said, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.